hello. I understand that we are between you and the drinks.
Yeah.
So we'll try to keep this lively, and we promise not to go too far over, but definitely want to give some time for your questions as well. So we've got 45 minutes total, and I'd like to talk to these guys for about 15, 20 minutes with some of the things that I have in mind, and then open it up right away to questions. So thank you so much for being here, and without further ado, let's introduce Seth Farbman. He's at the far end there, the global CMO of Gap. Roel de Vries.
Perfect.
All right. The VP and Global Head of Marketing, Communications, and Brand Strategy for Nissan. And Raja Rajamanar, who is CMO to MasterCard with a full 3 weeks under his belt now.
And that was perfect, too.
Oh, good. So I'll be sure to drill him about the nitty-gritty of the company as much as possible.
Thank you.
So I've just come from a show where we spent most of the time talking about and waiting to hear about whether the US government will shut down at the end of the day. So I apologize if I have that on the brain. And I don't know if that necessarily dovetails with the theme of what we've been talking about today, except I can't help but just kind of put it out there right away and ask the question about whether US politics is interfering with the brands that you're trying to build. Raja.
OK, that was not part of the prep. I'll try.
Seth, any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, fortunately, the government doesn't really dictate how skinny our jeans are. So not maybe in the sense that you guys have, but I mean, look, it does affect the consumer. It does affect people, their focus on their families and their lives. And so any kind of distraction is never wanted. Mm-hmm. So in that sense, yeah, it does.
Yeah.
We're an optimistic brand, too, and so we like seeing things in an optimistic view.
Right, and I think that goes back to the heart of a lot of these strategies, which are to try and kind of send out a message and take advantage of what seems to be an improving environment in terms of consumer confidence and whether they're using financial services, buying cars, et cetera. There are some common themes here, and just to go back to Interbrand and the survey out today showing the most valuable brands, a lot of you guys have made progress over the past year. Just to go down the line here, Nissan came in at number 65. That was a 25% jump from last year. MasterCard makes its debut, I think, at 97. It's up 8%. Gap rounded things out at number 100, up 5%. Seth, I'm curious because it seems as though actually relative to cars, financial services, technology, retailers have had a hard time moving up and cracking this list. And when I look down, basically the top retailer, at least as Interbrand defined the category, was Amazon at number 19. Then you get eBay at number 28. Kind of similarly, in a similar vein, you have McDonald's at number 7, Disney number 14, although they're restaurants and media. You know, the first apparel guys, really straight apparel guys, are H&M at number 21, Zara at 36, and then it skips down to Ralph Lauren at 88 and Gap at 100. So in terms of your space, you're in the top 5. Why do you think it is that retailers are having a harder time moving up overall?
I don't know. I think that there's obviously a bit of a lower barrier to get into retail than some other businesses. I think that there's a lot of competition, a lot of expansion as well. But for us, I'm not really even looking at the relative term, but our brand has increased 5% value. That's outstanding, and it's really why and what you've done to get there. And I think the lesson here is, what I'm especially proud of is we've improved the brand by being more Gap, by actually going back to the roots of the company, by not looking for a different business model or looking for a different positioning, but reinforcing that, and then looking for more places to share that. So when I look at retail, and where I get excited is, we're on our way to 80 stores in China this year. We just opened our first store in Brazil this week. There is incredible runway and an openness to American brands. And so for me, I just see this as an opportunity to get really, really clear on what you stand for, what your proposition is, what your belief systems are.
And what is that for Gap?
We're an optimistic brand. We are an American optimistic brand that is rooted in democracy and inclusiveness and in a sense of endurance and fairness. And what's great for us is if you want to think of us as a middle brand, we'll take that. We're not fast fashion, very disposable. and we're not high-end, where you know when you're buying into high-end that you're really paying more for that logo. But this core consumer that is just rapidly growing everywhere around the world as really the middle class expands has the very same values. How do I improve my life? How do I improve my children's life?
But this is crazy. I mean, we're talking about jeans fundamentally, and you're saying in order to be successful, you have to convince people that they're buying not jeans, they're buying into optimism and the future and the hope of self-improvement. I mean, that's an incredibly loaded thing to have to do in this day and age.
That's a brand.
Yeah.
A brand is a point of differentiation. And a brand is a set of beliefs that must be aligned with the company's beliefs. And if you really believe in certain things, you will execute time and time again. Product will be better, service will be better, experience will be better, all through that same lens. And the customer will respond. It's very complicated out there. There are many, many choices. That's wonderful. It's also very, very difficult for consumers. So the clearer you are, the more emotional and the more you share values, they'll be open to whatever it is that you want to share with them. And that's a brand.
Yeah, just one more question down the line, and then I'd like to open it up. That's kind of to go back to the theme of what we're purportedly talking about during this session, which is, what are the challenges, what are the opportunities for a CMO in today's digital world? I know we just heard from Qualcomm as well, talking about the ways in which devices are so quickly going mobile and how that's impacting the way that we consume and see brands and think about them all the time. So just Raja, first to you, I mean, what has changed today and what's going to change about your strategy with MasterCard now? That makes it different from what you might have done 5 or 10 years ago. Seth?
Yeah, I mean, there's something I call shiny object syndrome that sort of permeates, especially the marketing world, and it is a bit of a feeling of wanting to innovate, not wanting to get left behind, and it can be a distraction. And what I really look at is not so much what is the technology of the moment, but what is useful, and how are people receiving their content, asking for content, and what is the content that is native to that platform. It's a little bit of another stupid marketing buzzword that's going around now. There's no shortage of those. But I think it's important. You shouldn't take a TV spot and try to shove it into a social media channel and vice versa. And so it's really taking yourself out of your marketing head for a minute and really just saying, what do I have to say? Is it interesting? Correct. Is it simple? And now, how can I tell it in a way that's not disruptive or even interruptive, but actually builds on the experience somebody's having? I mean, we just are in the middle of a campaign for fall that we call Back to Blue, and we returned to television. But it's not television like television used to be. We returned to television because we thought we had some really compelling film content. But if we'd taken a 30-second TV spot and said, oh, great, now we're just going to put it online and look at us, we're integrated and we're digital, we would miss the storytelling and the depth and the engagement. And so we took a TV spot that shows a guy like Danny Harrison, George Harrison's son, performing for the first time ever one of his father's songs. A great deal of emotion in deciding to do it. The image that we share, the film, is something very real and authentic and even a little bit painful in a sense. You see it. And if we had simply taken what is a very interesting TV spot and thrown it on digital, it would do something, but it wouldn't do everything. So you accompany that with interviews, with the decision to actually cover your father's song. He's a Beatle, for God's sakes. What it must be like to grow up the son of a Beatle. And what that process was like. That then is useful to a customer. It's not simply, I'm trying to sell you something, it's I'm trying to share something with you. Mm-hmm. And that's what digital does. That's what social does. It allows you to share much more content, so it's a very, very rich environment.
That's a great example. Questions now from the audience. If you've got them, don't be shy. Yep, back there in the middle. I don't know if we need a microphone or something. Maybe just shout.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Danny Harrison and Alexa Ray Joel are the center of these two films. And it's a great question. If you didn't hear it, are we targeting a younger audience with this talent? And the answer is yes, but what I really love about it is we're actually cross-generational, right? And that's one of the things I love about our brand. We're a cross-generational, multi-generational brand. You know, we go from like 1 day old, which we do really well, all the way up to, 100 years old. And so, these spots, they take what is familiar to some of us, Billy Joel or George Harrison, and it puts it into a context of today. And I just think that the relationship between parent and child is universal, cross-generational. Doesn't matter when you grew up, you all had those issues, challenges, hopes, dreams, all of those things. And by sharing that in a very sort of public way, I think you're getting at lots of things. You're getting at that relationship, you're getting at musical influences, you're getting at what it feels like and what it's like to be current today. So we try to do everything. And that's another lesson of marketing. I think it's try to look at your content and try to do as many things as you can with it, so you're not just overly niche and targeted. The human truths, they transcend everything, and those are actually the most impactful.
Can I ask as well, to you guys, especially Ranja and Raul, is that need, that desire to be current that Seth was just talking about, something that's uniquely American, or does that work everywhere?
From my perspective, I think it's universal.
I was curious, Seth, to his question as well. I mean, when you open a store in a place like Brazil, is that so you can say, yay, we're in Brazil? Look at us, we're global? Or how much pressure is there to perform right away?
Yeah, well, I like saying, yay, we're in Brazil. I mean, that's exciting. There's always pressure to perform.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, Brazil is part of a very deliberate and very aggressive global expansion strategy for us that's led by Gap brand. So there's no there's no victory laps, as my chairman likes to say. You move on, you keep doing, you keep trying more and more and more. And to be on a list, I mean, it's a list. We all like being on lists. You like them more if you're going up and less if you're going down. But we're in this world now where you can get real-time feedback on how you're doing. So I launch in Brazil, and by close of business, I know if I had a good day or a bad day.
And?
Oh, we had a good day. Yeah.
Just curious.
We're going to open another store. And that's really rich. You don't get the analysis with all of that data. That's the trick. There's always been a lot of data, and there'll be more and more data. Much like the internet, there's no shortage of information, but there might be a shortage of knowledge. It's converting it into insight. That's the trick. So we spend a lot of time now trying to understand what's the underlying factor and what people are saying about us. Do they like us more? Do they like us less?
And why, yeah.
And why, yeah.
Did I see a question right here? Yep, go ahead. Just give it 1 sec. It's coming down.
Hi, I've got an interesting question because we've had a lot of people speaking today, and no disrespect to you, Seth, but a lot of people seem to be from the international market. And you would normally see, well, you would think that the US is obviously like the hotbed of marketing, of innovation, and so on. Why do you think so many CMOs who have come and talked to us today are not from America?
I did notice that, though. I will give you that.
I actually don't know if it's coincidence. It could be coincidence. I'm not sure if we are statistically representative, coming back to big data that we just discussed. But what I do think, two things. First of all, I'm based in Japan and I'm Dutch. I I still do believe that most innovation, or a lot of innovation and thinking in the world of marketing is coming from the US. So I still think the United States is leading in so many aspects. I do think at the same time, the reason why I think a lot of international people are sitting in jobs all over the world is because you cannot, I think, do a good marketing job if you don't understand a bit more of the world than your own country. So in other words, if I would only know Holland, I cannot do my job. So I think you will find more and more people, whether they are American or Dutch or Indian or French, that would have worked and lived in various places of the globe. I think you ideally should understand a bit of the emerging markets, of course ideally something of the very developed United States or Europe, and something of Asia. So my read on it is not so much that they're non-American or not European, but I think more and more you will start seeing people that when they were younger have taken the step to step out in the world and experience different cultures and different ways of doing business.
It's a great question. We only have a couple of minutes left, so I'm curious as well, I'll start with Seth, what the first thing is that you read or look at is when you wake up in the morning?
What's the first news that I look at?
Or first thing. I mean, I don't know what news is anymore.
CNBC, of course.
Okay, great answer. Maybe the second?
The truth is I use Twitter as a news feed.
Okay, so Twitter first.
So yeah, I scan through because I can simply look at what's trending. I can look at a bunch of different news sources, and I dive in that way, and then I move into sort of my normal morning routine.
Would that include other web-based social media kinds of things, or do you then kind of turn to a newspaper or to television?
Yeah, I mix it up. You know, it's BuzzFeed, and then it's New York Times. Not necessarily in that order, right? It depends, but absolutely. And I use them for really different purposes. You know, I digress for a second, but I do find you need 2 and 3 different news sources to get really proper analysis of the day's events. A lot of times when I read one, I have more questions than answers, right. But that's just sort of my nature, I think.
Roll?
Yeah, actually, I do slightly different. I get coffee and I open a traditional newspaper because the moment I switch that thing on, my day,
even with
my
all the
day is
traveling,
gone. So
how do you logistically have a newspaper every morning?
It arrives at 5 o'clock in the morning at my door. So now I try to start the day.
Is it the
with
local press where you are, or do you have a?
It's in Japan. It's actually International Herald Tribune, which I think is the New York Times international publication. And then I think after that, I think like all of us, into our emails, into news feeds. So I get my Google alerts of anything that happened on Nissan, and the point is, the moment you switch that thing on, the time you switch it off is when you go to bed. So yeah. I try to postpone that by about half an hour in the morning.
Yeah, exactly. Raja?
I guess I start off my craziness early in the morning with multitasking. So it's simultaneously listening, of course, not seeing but watching, but listening to CNBC, getting my shaving and all done, and also finishing off my emails. I try to sort of accomplish all those simultaneously, and it's been happening.
Yeah, I can imagine that.
It is indeed.
Leads to some problems. No, but I ask because ultimately I think what all of you as well are after is how do you get in front of people these days when they first wake up or when you are trying to reach them during the day. I think it's a question that whether we're content creators or marketers that we all grapple with, and it sounds like there unfortunately isn't one easy answer. That we really are at the vanguard of multiple screens or multiple medium or whatever you want to call it. So getting that simple message across remains the challenge on all those different formats. Well, please join me in thanking our panelists, and thank you all so much for being here.
Thank you.